side of the airport to say a few words before we go into the presentation. Councilperson Sly, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Director Kennedy, and thank you for having me on tonight. I'm very excited for not just the city of Cleveland, but residents of the larger region to attend this meeting, see this plan. It's very exciting. We had a meeting today of the City of Cleveland Transportation Committee of Cleveland City Council, and a lot of interest. Just to summarize what's going on, not just in Ward 17, but in the area generally around the airport. Cleveland Hopkins has a long and storied history, but I think anyone, quite frankly, who's traveled through it in recent times knows that it can feel at times a bit small, congested, and doesn't really stack up relative to a lot of the other airports we see when we're traveling. And what is being presented tonight is a multi-decade plan that re-pivots Cleveland Hopkins International Airport from what it is today, a very utilitarian, well-run airport that could use some improvements, into a world-class facility. And I truly believe that this is catalytic for our entire region. Airports are a fundamental part of regional economic development, and airports really are the front door to any community. And when people get off that plane and come into a modernized, mostly new Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, in the coming decades, they're gonna know that they're in a really special place, a city that is on the move, and within a facility that reflects all the great things that we love about this region. I am the local council member for the airport. I'm also on the transportation committee, so I come at this from a lot of angles. But just genuinely thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of the questions and seeing what is, I truly believe, going to be a catalytic transformation of a regional asset that we can all be excited about. So thank you, Director.
Thank you, Councilperson. Kelsey, I think we start the presentation.
Yep, I'm going to go ahead and show the recorded presentation. Everybody can go on mute and turn the cameras off.
Hello, I'm Mayor Frank Jackson. I want to thank you for joining us for the final Airport Master Plan meeting. The new Airport Master Plan is a blueprint for the next 20 years that provides Cleveland with a new terminal and concourses. It is an investment in Cleveland's future. New international facilities will enhance our position as a world marketplace. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to the new plan for the future of the city of Cleveland and Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, including the airlines, our corporate stakeholders, and other individuals from throughout the greater Cleveland community. Your input has been crucial to creating this master plan. I want to thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our final Master Plan public meeting. We appreciate your participation in this process. During the past 18 months, there have been thousands of hours of work done by our consultants and by our team, hundreds of stakeholder inputs, and dozens of meetings to reach this point, and we would not be at this plan for our future without you. Your active engagement has been invaluable. A lot has changed in our industry and certainly at CLE over the past 2 decades. The effect of a post 9/11 operating environment, moving from a hub airport to an origin and destination airport, and now a post-COVID global industry. Our facility needs to change to ensure we are well equipped for that future. The future is bright for the city of Cleveland and Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, and this master plan will help chart a path forward to the next quarter century. We have a recorded presentation from RS&H Project Manager, Jeff Michelin, on the master plan, and after the presentation, We will continue with live question and answer session.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Mishler, and I'm the project manager for the RS&H team on the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport Master Plan. Welcome to public meeting number 3. In addition to myself, the other speakers include Gary Logston of RS&H, who will discuss forecast and other facilities, Dean Sherman of Leo A. Daly, who will discuss the initial terminal concepts, Kelsey Reeves of RS&H, who will discuss Landside, and Jorge Gonzalez of RS&H, who will discuss implementation and finance. Since this is the last public meeting, we're going to review all the work done as part of the master plan. We're going to review the vision for the master plan, which helped guide the parts of the airport to focus on, the forecast of aviation demand and planning activity levels, PALs, key facility requirements, the evaluation of alternatives, presentation of the recommended plan, financial and implementation considerations, and final steps.
In October 2019, when Mayor Jackson kicked off the master planning process, our airport was headed to a very, very substantial growth in passengers and flights that we had not seen in many years. We welcomed over 10 million guests. We had over 100,000 operations, and at the airport, more than 7,000 employees. March of 2020, the impacts of COVID hit. Our landings went down to less than 45,000. Our passengers were around 4.1 million, and we had lost more than 3,000 jobs at this airport. This is the real impact of what COVID did for us. However, as you will learn through the rest of this presentation, we must be prepared for that future that will be brighter and, yes, will certainly come to us. Part of that gives us the reason for the brighter future and that we will have a recovery is what we have seen and continue to see at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. In 2013, which was the last full year before the hub was dismantled here, out of every 100 passengers that bought tickets in the catchment area of Cleveland Hopkins, 77 went through this airport. 21 went through Akron, and 1 went through Youngstown. Fast forward to last year, 94, almost 94 of those passengers who bought tickets out of every 100 came here. We were that airport of choice. And a little over 6 went to another airport in the area. So our growth in origin and destination passengers are helping to fuel the demands on our roadway and our terminal that was not there when we were a hub. Helping to us prepare and chart our future is sustained demand. Through the first 4 months of this year, Cleveland has continued to outpace the national average for recovery in passengers. As you look at this slide, the dark blue is what the recovery rate for Cleveland Hopkins. The light blue is the national average. All 4 months, we exceeded it. We are continuing to see demand and marketplace response here in Cleveland. Just to put a finer point on it, as we look at the throughputs that happen here at Cleveland, April through the 1st of May, we're getting closer and closer to 2019 levels, which was a watershed year for us. We had 4 days that was very close to where we were in 2019. Over the last 7 days, we have had an average that surpassed 10,000 enplanements or 20,000 total passengers. So our recovery and our preparedness for that recovery must go forward. I'm often asked about the change in the airport since the hub was taken down in 2014. But I mentioned earlier that 2019 was a watershed year. United had 28% of the traffic the guests that went through this airport, Southwest, 16, American, and so forth. A year later, January, February, which were the even better months in 2020 than in 2019, United still had 25%, Delta 16, and so forth. However, January, February of 2021, we did see the effects of COVID on our carriers. United had been reduced to 22%, Frontier had been raised to 18%, 16% for Spirit, and Delta at 13, and American at 14. Our carrier mix continues to change significantly, and it is forecasted that this change, this rapid change in carriers and amount of passengers they carry will be seen over the next couple of years in our recovery.
Thank you, Director Kennedy. Okay, let's do a quick review of the vision for the master plan. The airport has some notable opportunities. Prior to the pandemic, economic growth was strong in the region. Coming out of the downturn caused by the pandemic, all the fundamentals for a return to strong growth are in place. As Director Kennedy indicated, the airport has had much success in developing new air service, and low-cost carriers are gaining market share. And the airport sees an opportunity to use technology to increase customer service and get more out of existing infrastructure. And finally, the master plan needs to consider threats. Due to the pandemic, the airport had to deal with one of its main threats, an economic downturn. Although the airport needs to address short-term capacity enhancements in the terminal, they are highly leveraged and may not have enough financing capacity for several more years. And airport staff also indicate the competition from other airports, especially for the international traveler, is a threat to long-term growth. And now I'd like to ask Gary Logston to spend a few minutes talking about aviation activity forecast.
Development of aviation forecasts are a significant step in the master plan process, since that information is used to develop the basis for identifying a facility requirements for all aspects of aviation activity: passengers, air cargo, general aviation, terminal, landside, and all other facilities. Once those forecasts are developed, say for passengers, we no longer associate a number of passengers with a specific year. Instead, we use those forecasts as target levels of activity, or trigger points, for identifying the facility demand needed to serve that number of passengers, regardless of what year they may occur. We associate these trigger points with planning activity levels, or PALs. The common practice of using PALs to represent a forecast level of activity became even more important when forecasting during the pandemic. In 2019, Cleveland reached the 10 million level of total passengers, that is, the total number of persons getting on and off airplanes, and was about to achieve passenger levels not seen until before the Great Recession in 2008 and 9. In 2019, international passengers represented approximately 1.7% of all passengers, or about 166,000. Just after the original forecasts were submitted to the FAA and the United States experienced the unheard of decline of aviation activity in April 2020 due to COVID-19, it became apparent impacts of the pandemic had to be addressed by the forecasts. As we all came to realize, there were no precedents. Our early analysis identified a 3 to 7 year range for a potential recovery period, with a general consensus of 3 to 4 years. The analysis on this slide shows a more conservative potential for a 5-year rebound to 2019 levels of 10 million passengers by 2024. Specifically, the Cleveland Master Plan forecast indicates a 2024 level of passengers to be about the same as 2019, 10 million, represented by the planning activity level number 1, or potentially as high has the original 2024 forecast of 11 million, which is planning activity level number 2, 12 million for planning activity level number 3, and approximately 13.5 million passengers by planning activity level number 5 in about 20 years. Over the next 20 years, it is anticipated that the share of international passengers will increase from 1.7% to 4.5%. That is about 166,000 passengers to just over 600,000 international passengers. This slide projects a conservative potential COVID-19 total operations scenario where the airport would recover within 5 years. The general consensus for recovery in operations is about 3 to 5 years, a little bit longer than for passenger activity. The original forecast assumed a modest growth of operations, about 9% over 20 years, to 139,000 annual operations. This is an average annual growth rate of 0.5% per year over the next 20 years. The long-term forecast total of annual operations is still less than 50% of the approximately 336,000 annual operations that were served by the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport in the year 2000.
Thank you, Gary. Now let's have a look at the impact of those forecasts on facility requirements. We talked about how congested the terminal was back in 2019. As you can see, passenger processing facilities included ticketing, checked baggage inspection, and passenger security checkpoint. All were undersized back in 2019. Ticketing requires an additional 2,500 square feet in the near term, and checked bag screening area requires an additional 8,300 square feet. The security checkpoints were very undersized, requiring over a doubling of area to 43,000 square feet to meet facility requirements. The average aircraft size has gotten larger, so many of the hold rooms are now undersized. And peak hour demand in 2019 indicates an additional 8 aircraft gates are needed in the near term.
This is a high-level summary of terminal area landside requirements. Because of the dependent nature and relationship between the terminal building and the landside facilities, landside configurations have been highly coordinated throughout the entire planning process. The facility requirements you see are derived from both demand forecasts and on-airport terminal area roadway level of service analyses. The study showed an average terminal curb dwell time that's nearly double the national average, roughly 5 minutes versus the norm of 3 minutes. And this is disrupting safe, efficient traffic movements into the terminal area and reducing overall curb capacity. During peak times, the congestion even backs traffic out into the Berea Freeway, creating serious safety concerns. Preferred terminal area development addresses forecast demand through a physical roadway reconfiguration, but it is important to note that this is also an area of concern that can be addressed in the near term through actions that adjust operations and enforcement policy and strategies. So if you have driven to the airport and entered from the north along the Berea Freeway, as the majority of drivers do, you can probably picture yourself driving that last mile into the airport, all the merging and weaving with non-airport traffic that's going south while you attempt to make the exit ramp. Most people, I think, would describe this as a pretty stressful driving experience, and that's due to the speeds, the volume of traffic, the short distance for maneuvering, the mixing of airport destined traffic and non-airport traffic, and the distance of roadway that's available to make those safe decisions. And finally, if you did make the exit, you slow into a series of traffic signals with really enough decisions to kind of make your head spin. There's multiple parking options in 3 different directions. There's 2 terminal curbs straight ahead going to upper and lower. The hotel entry is on the left right there, and there's a recirculation roadway that merges also from the left at that first signal. This decision overload is really the result of growth that needed to meet demand in a highly constrained terminal area landside space. And it's been at the top of the airport's checklist for issues to resolve as part of this master plan. This master plan is kind of able to take a long view and look to address these terminal area constraints. By following established landside best planning principles, the preferred development really does simplify driver decisions and provides adequate time for decision making, which eliminates the need for the traffic signals that meter flows currently, and it eliminates unnecessary traffic crossing at the curbs, which ultimately increases the curb's capacity. The next requirement of our preferred solutions is improving walkability and convenience for most customers moving from landside facilities to the terminal and vice versa. The airport offers various ground transportation modes, I think train, taxi, transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft, limousines, hotel shuttles, other shuttles, rental car, etc. They're all spread across the terminal area, and rental car is even actually off-site, which requires a 10-minute shuttle ride. So the preferred configuration ultimately is going to need to consolidate the ground transportation into a walkable distance from that terminal. Analysis also showed that rental car storage capacity needs to increase. However, really the key focus for the master plan with regard to rental car facilities was improving customer convenience and then the overall level of service. The preferred development is going to position rental car agencies to vastly improve that customer experience in a very cost-effective way. And finally, the RTA red line accessibility and convenience needs to be maintained in any solution that's created for this master plan. It was determined early on that this was a must-have for the preferred terminal configuration. This table shows the total existing parking spaces and rental car spaces, as well as what is needed to meet forecast demand over the planning period. Focusing on the walkable parking in the terminal area, you can see the deficiency over the planning period of roughly 2,500 spaces in the garage, about 1,000 spaces of surface parking, and then the 600 rental car spaces that are needed. What you see here are 3 different concepts developed to address the issues related to regional access at the airport. It's important to note that because road and rail connections extend beyond airport boundaries and therefore outside of airport control, coordination with regional transportation agencies and neighboring communities was really critical in developing these regional access options. The airport and the city of Cleveland have been coordinating with regional agencies like the Ohio Department of Transportation, Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, or NOACA, as well as neighboring communities of Brook Park and Berea throughout the master planning process. The top right image shows Regional Access Concept 1. This concept scored the lowest of the 3 evaluated concepts. While it does address known issues by lengthening the airport entry distance and simplifying decision-making within a constrained space, it does so at a pretty high cost. This concept requires elevated roadways, which dramatically increase implementation costs, and ultimately, at levels beyond the planning period, it will likely be inadequate to meet traffic volumes. This means most likely regional access to the airport will eventually require alteration or even replacement. This concept was eventually eliminated from consideration in future planning efforts as the preferred terminal area concepts were developed. Regional Access Concept 2, shown in the bottom right, is an excellent near-term solution. This concept dedicates a portion of the roadway shown in yellow for airport dedicated traffic only and reroutes Berea Freeway traffic bypassing the airport along Ingle Road and Brook Park Road, shown in green. This effectively repurposes existing right-of-way and lengthens the dedicated airport entry and prevents the mixing of traffic. It is a highly effective, relatively low-cost solution that's simple to phase and very flexible in terms of timing for a variety of airport terminal solutions. The greatest challenge associated with this solution is the unstudied impacts of what additional traffic on Brook Park Road and Ingle Road look like. It's not been modeled as part of this master plan, and this may be seen as an opportunity or a burden by neighboring communities, depending on how changes to the corridor are addressed. Regional Access Concept 3, shown in the largest image, performs best as the ultimate solution for proposed regional access to the airport. Like Regional Access 2, this concept has a dedicated airport entry, which improves simplicity and safety for vehicle access to and from the airport. It also preserves the Berea Freeway as a free-flowing north-south corridor past the airport. Regional Concept 3 reconfigures the interchange at I-71 and Snow Road to allow construction of a 4-lane, mostly elevated airport entry road that parallels Snow Road, crossing over the Berea Freeway into the terminal area. The greatest challenge associated with this solution is the high cost. Committee meetings with regional agencies and neighboring communities during the master plan did result in a consensus decision that Regional Concept 3 is the preferred ultimate solution. The good news is that development of Regional Access Concept 2 and 3 are not mutually exclusive. It is entirely possible to implement Regional Access 2 in the near term, work toward implementation of Regional Access Concept 3 in the long term, and eventually reopen the Berea Freeway to non-airport traffic once Regional Access number 3 is implemented. The preferred terminal area landside configuration can accommodate phasing of both options over time. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Gary Logston.
The next two slides address facility requirements for other airport facilities, which occupies the largest portion of airport property. Here are the wide-ranging facilities, including cargo, general aviation, aircraft maintenance facilities, airline facilities, airport traffic control tower, aircraft rescue and firefighting facility, aircraft fuel farms, airport maintenance, post office, and the IX Center. We reference these facilities to be located in 3 areas. These are aircraft maintenance facilities and a fuel farm in the north area, which is adjacent to the airport terminal, shown here in the upper right. UPS and airport maintenance are located in the west area, accessed from Brook Park Drive, as shown in the upper left. All other facilities that we mentioned are in the south area, which is south of the airport terminal. Other airport facilities currently occupy 90 acres. Facility requirements based upon master plan forecast project the need for 37 additional acres to accommodate growth and expansion opportunities for all these tenants and uses over the next 20 years. The 3 largest growth areas are airline, aircraft maintenance and support facilities, FBO and corporate aviation, and cargo facilities.
Okay, so I'm going to review the process we went through to arrive at a preferred terminal concept. Based on the terminal facility requirements, we developed 6 concepts for terminal development. We did a high-level evaluation of the 6 concepts, and family 1, 2, and 6 were selected for more detailed evaluation. Family 3 was eliminated from consideration. It is similar to family 1 in that it reuses the existing terminal and most of the existing concourses, but it also introduces a new unit terminal near existing concourse D. The unit terminal would include separate ticketing, security screening, and baggage claim facilities. This was considered to be a disadvantage because separating these functions would be less efficient for terminal operations and less flexible for accommodating future changes in airline load shares. Separate facilities could also lead to more confusion for passengers finding their way through the terminal. Family 4 makes use of available land to the east of Route 237 that is not currently airport property for a new terminal and landside campus. It was eliminated because of the high cost of initial development, long walking distances from terminal to gates, and potential complications in phasing the construction. Family 5 constructs a new terminal and landside campus south of the existing terminal. It too would entail a high initial cost and additional cost and time to relocate existing facilities on the site. The new terminal location is more remote from the existing RTA station, resulting in less convenient access to mass transit than what exists now. So Family 5 was also eliminated. We did a more detailed evaluation of the remaining 3 concepts using criteria and importance factors developed with airport stakeholders. Family 6 scored well for efficiency of the gate layout. However, it scored lower for passenger experience due to the need to change levels to access the satellite concourse by way of an underground tunnel. The satellite concourse would also need its own concession node, resulting in less efficient concession operations and reduced concession choices for passengers. It is anticipated that construction phasing would be more complicated than the other 2 concepts, particularly for the development of the Landside campus. Family 6 also requires a greater cost to meet near-term needs than the other 2 concepts. Families 1 and 2 both scored higher in the evaluation than Family 6. So at this point, we introduced some additional evaluation metrics to further differentiate between these 2. For Family 1, we measured the overall footprint of the layout. We also measured the maximum distance from the northernmost gate on the right-hand side of the slide to the southernmost gate on the left-hand side, and the distance from the new face of the terminal to the westernmost gates toward the top of the slide. We also looked at the areas of new construction versus existing facilities to be renovated. The outline of the existing facility is shown here with a dashed red line. We did the same thing for Family 2. The chart on the upper right-hand side of the slide summarizes the differences. The overall footprint of Family 2 is 125,000 square feet less than Family 1. The distance from the northernmost gate to the southernmost gate is 290 feet less, and the distance from the new face of the terminal to the westernmost gates is 450 feet less. This tells us that Family 2 is a more compact layout, resulting in shorter walking distances, shorter utility runs, and more efficient operations. Family 2 will also result in a greater percentage of new construction versus renovating existing. So to summarize, we recommend Family 2 as the preferred alternative for the following reasons. Family 2 actually has a lower construction cost through PAL 2, whereas Family 1 requires deferring a portion of the PAL 2 program in order to fit the financial model. Family 2 results in a newer terminal building over the long term. It provides superior customer experience beyond PAL 2, shorter walking distances, easy wayfinding, greater opportunities for introducing daylight into the space. It provides more opportunities for concession improvements with major concession nodes located at the north and south ends of the terminal. Newer, more efficient building systems and new energy efficient building envelopes will result in lower operation, maintenance, and replacement costs over time. Family 2 ultimately results in 4 new concourses versus 1 new concourse for Family 1. For approximately the same cost, Family 2 provides more new terminal building space than renovated space. The gate layout for Family 2 is more efficient for aircraft movements and passenger circulation. And Family 2 facilitates intuitive wayfinding and provides good separation of in-planing and deplaning passenger flows. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
As we look into a little bit more detail, the evaluation between Family 1 and Family 2, one of the findings was that cost, although important, was not a key determinant in the selection of Family 2 terminal layout. As such, other factors such as layout efficiency, new versus renovated space, and land use efficiency became the key differentiators. Let's talk about cost. As you can see, Family 1 is less costly than Family 2, $1.2 billion versus $1.4 billion for the terminal. Landside costs, including roads, parking structure, surface parking, and rental car facilities, are the same for both options at $179 million. Total program cost for the terminal area is $1.9 billion for Family 1 and $2.1 billion for Family 2. Costs are important to consider in the evaluation of alternatives and later in the financial feasibility analysis. However, in this case, the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering Guidelines indicate that at a master planning level of cost estimating, the $200 million difference between Family 1 and Family 2 is not significant. For the master plan, it's fair to consider them both $2 billion programs. For this reason, other factors became important in the selection of a preferred alternative. For example, Family 1 is described as expansion and renovation of the existing terminal, whereas Family 2 represents building newer facilities on the existing terminal site. As a result, at full build-out, the Family 2 terminal will have 70% new building space, and Family 1 will have approximately 40%. Likewise, with Family 2, the terminal will have 4 new concourses and 1 renovated concourse. Family 1, on the other hand, would have only 1 new concourse and 3 renovated concourses. In other words, for approximately the same cost, the Family 2 alternative gives Cleveland a newer, more modern terminal that the entire community can be proud of. Another consideration is operational efficiency. We found that passenger walking and aircraft taxiing distances were comparable between Family 2 and Family 1. One area where Family 2 has a clear advantage is layout efficiency. The Family 2 terminal layout has approximately 4,000 square feet per gate less than Family 1. In addition, the average linear feet per gate is approximately 10 feet less than with Family 2. What this means is that Family 2 is a very compact, efficient layout compared to Family 1. It makes better use of available land. In addition, it provides more opportunity for terminal expansion beyond the 20-year planning period of this master plan. And finally, the newer terminal provided with Family 2 will save operations and maintenance costs over the long term. As can be seen in the graphic, the O&M cost can be 60 to 80% of the total cost of ownership over the life of the facility. To put it in terms that many of us will understand, a 100-year-old house will require more maintenance than a new house and will cost a whole lot more than you think it will. The same goes for terminal buildings. The newer terminal provided by Family 2 will save the airport maintenance costs over the long-term planning horizon. Over the course of the study, several members of the consulting team were asked by the public, what was the master plan going to recommend for closed Concourse D? In short, the master plan recommends demolition of Concourse D and construction of a new Concourse E. Concourse E extends to the southeast from the main terminal building and would have 5 aircraft parking positions. As can be seen in the graphic, the cost to reopen and upgrade Concourse D, build a new second-level walkway from the terminal, and strengthen the apron for larger aircraft is more expensive than building new Concourse E. In addition, the walking distance to the furthest gate is almost double with existing Concourse D. So for less money, the airport will get a new concourse that provides a superior level service for the public. Now let's go into a little bit more detail about the plan. The detailing of the plan, phasing implementation plan, and financial analysis were completed concurrently. The initial phasing plan was based on meeting facility requirements, maintaining capacity, enabling projects requirements, and an effort to balance cost over 3 phases. At the same time, a financial capacity model was generated. Flexibility to shift projects to other phases or reduce the scale of the projects to stay within the financial capacity of the airport was incorporated into the phasing plan. Let's look at the initial phasing program for the preferred terminal area alternative, Family 2. Most of the projects for PAL 2 address the capacity shortcomings of the terminal. The PAL 2 program includes an expansion of the terminal to the south and development of a new large security checkpoint area. To make room for more circulation in front of the ticket counters, the PAL2 program includes moving ticketing offices to a new mezzanine level and pushing the ticket counters back into that space. A new FIS will be built in the main terminal. International arrival gates will now be on new Concourse B. Speaking of Concourse B, the PAL2 program includes demolition of existing Concourse B and construction of new Concourse B. Concourse B is one of the oldest parts of the terminal building. The PAL2 program also includes a modernized and expanded Concourse A. The new Concourse E, which we talked about earlier, will also be constructed in the PAL2 program. It is operationally expensive to shuttle customers to and from the rental car facilities and less convenient from the passenger customer perspective. That is why the airport, rental car companies, and traveling public all requested that the remote rental car facility be relocated back to the terminal area. The PAL2 program includes a new rental car facility adjacent to the terminal. There will be two 3-level structures, one for ready return lot and one for quick turnaround, and an attached customer service building in the general area of the existing orange lot. To replace the lost orange lot parking spaces and help accommodate forecast demand, a temporary surface lot will be constructed on the east side of existing Concourse D. The ground-loaded concourses on the east side of Concourse D will be demolished, and a weather-protected walkway will be constructed to the terminal. PAL2 program contains other temporary landside projects to enable terminal area development. A temporary sheltered taxi stand is established near the existing location to allow terminal expansion, and a temporary cell phone lot is created between Park Drive and the Smart Garage to provide a more convenient waiting location while the final cell phone lot is replaced in later PALs. Since PAL 3 is mostly landside development, PAL 2.5 includes critical enabling projects ahead of the PAL 3 program. The main project in the PAL 2.5 program is a new terminal loop roadway. It will expand the area available for convenient walkable parking, eliminate the need for existing signalized intersections, and provide drivers time, space, simplified decision points to create a safer and more intuitive user experience. It will also allow the terminal in a later phase to expand to the east, closer to the parking structure. In addition, the Sheraton Hotel will be demolished and replaced with surface parking. A new cell lot will be added. It is important to note that the existing constant aviation hangars will have to be relocated before the new terminal loop roadway can be constructed. And finally, PAL 2.5 includes demolition of Old Concourse D. The PAL 3 program is mostly landside and includes demolition of the existing parking structure and construction of a new 7-level multifunctional parking structure. The new parking structure consolidates all ground transportation services into a new all-weather ground transportation center that includes rental car customer services and ground level ready return spaces. The structure also contains 6 levels for public parking. Commercial vehicles will conveniently stage immediately upstream of the new ground transportation center to ensure quick availability for customers. Most of the remaining land within the terminal loop roadway will be converted to surface parking. There is one major terminal project in the PAL 3 program, and that is construction of new Concourse C. Existing Concourse C would be renamed Concourse D on an interim basis. And finally, the PAL 5 program includes expansion of the terminal building to the east to meet the new terminal loop roadway. This will reduce walking distance from the front of the terminal to the parking structure, improving customer service. The PAL 5 program also includes demolition of renamed interim Concourse D and construction of new Concourse D.
Recommendations for airfield improvements do not include any changes to runway lengths. The program includes a series of taxiway improvements that primarily address current FAA design standards to accommodate future use by the largest aircraft that would operate at the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport in more areas on the airfield than today. An example of the largest aircraft is the Boeing 777. Recommendations for the West development area for the airport continues to support air cargo and airport maintenance facilities with the potential for growth by general aviation. Recommendations for the South development area focus on flexibility and being able to enhance growth opportunities for current and future tenants. Ultimately, facilities in the North development area would be relocated to the south to make way for airport terminal expansion in the long term. The plan for the South development area provides for accommodating short-term tenant needs that provide more attractive airfield access, while over the long term transitioning to develop campus-like facilities for similar aviation activities. The plan provides options for air cargo to relocate, expand directly along the parallel taxiway to the primary runway. This would result in providing new vehicular access for air cargo facilities from Aerospace Parkway and remove air cargo truck traffic from vehicular traffic along Postal Road. The plan would also provide access along the parallel taxiway for FBO and corporate general aviation, while expanding opportunities for new general aviation tenants in the area. There is sufficient land to accommodate facility needs in the South development area, but the sequence of potential tenant needs for relocation, expansion, or new facility sites is unknown. Therefore, flexible options are built into the plan for accommodating immediate tenant needs and providing for more direct airfield access by the construction of new taxi lanes within the South area. Examples are providing for the potential to serve aircraft maintenance facilities or reservation of land for future taxiway access to the IX Center. The master plan is flexible in identifying the future use of the IX Center, either as continuing to be a large non-aeronautical land use as present or repurposing for large aviation tenants as opportunities may arise in the future. A final feature of the South Development Plan is preservation of an ultimate option for expansion of the terminal to the south beyond its current envelope.
As seen in previous slides, the proposed development program that would bring the airport up to a PAL 5 development has been estimated at a cost of about $2.1 billion. A key task that was performed as part of the analysis of the program was to determine if the airport would be able to financially afford it, considering its current and future financial capacity. To establish this capacity, the team developed an elaborate financial model that considered current and future revenue and expense forecast, the impact that the COVID pandemic had on airport finances, as well as the expectations of the return of passenger traffic, as was discussed earlier by Gary when he presented the passenger traffic forecast slides. To determine financial capacity, we worked with the airport to incorporate into the financial model key metrics that would allow the airport to fund the capital program without financially straining the airlines, passengers, its tenants, other customers, and its own financial resources. Some of the key metrics that were considered included maintaining the cost per in-plane passenger at the same level as it was in 2019 for the airlines at about $14.07. Issuing debt for the funding of the PAL 2 program for not more than 10 years and refinancing this debt by 2031 or by the time the airport pays most of its current long-term debt. Also, we recommended not issuing long-term debt for more than 30 years. Considering that the program included several facilities associated with the car rental developments, we recommend the implementation of a customer facility charge program starting as early as 2023. Through this program, the airport would be able to generate revenue from a fee that is collected from each car rental agreement. These revenues can only be used for the development of car rental associated facilities, but it would allow the airport to pay for the program. Additionally, the model assessed the amount of long-term debt that the airport currently carries and the revenue sources that support payments for such debt. We found out that the airport is expected to pay most of its long-term debt by 2031 from different sources, including airline fees, passenger facility charges or PFCs, parking, and other commercial revenues. We also found out that the use of the passenger facility charges for repayment of this debt is only obligated until the end of 2024. So starting in 2025, the airport will be able to use revenues from the PFCs to pay for the new proposed program. As a side note, in 2019, the airport collected over $20 million in PFCs. When you consider all of the above, the financial model estimated the funding capacity of the airport, if it stays within the established financial metrics that we previously discussed, the capacity would be around $1.85 billion, which when compared to the estimated cost of the program is $250 million less than the $2.1 billion of estimated cost. The analysis also showed that the highest amount of debt that the airport would incur in the process would be $1.458 billion and a debt to in-plane passenger ratio of $244.49. Under this predicament, the team and the airport looked at various options that would allow them to implement the much needed program, but within the constraints imposed by the estimated financial capacity, which required the program to be reduced by $250 million. The team evaluated various options to reduce cost, but at the same time looked at other alternatives, including the possibility of deferring certain projects beyond the PAL 5 horizon. By deferring certain non-essential projects, the majority of the program could be funded, and the program could be fully implemented if these projects would be built beyond the PAL 5 horizon. This slide shows the components of the proposed deferred program. As you might see, the two main projects that are being deferred is the construction of the new Concourse D. Concourse D would be replacing current Concourse C. Under this program, Concourse C would be maintained, it would become Concourse D, and the new Concourse D would only be built beyond PAL 5. The other project that would be deferred would be the full construction of the parking structure in front of the terminal, building K in your slide. That parking would be built partially. By deferring these two projects beyond PAL 5, the cost of the proposed program would be within the estimated airport's financial capacity.
There are 3 steps to finalizing the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport Master Plan. Those steps include 1 item that have 2 pieces, which will be submitted to the FAA, the airport layout plan and the Exhibit A and property inventory map. Also, documentation of all research processes used to develop recommendations and information gathered over the last 18 months for this master plan will be detailed. The airport layout plan is a complete graphic depiction of airport plans. This is an essential planning document that must be approved by the FAA before FAA will grant money for projects depicted on the ALP. The ALP set includes overall drawings showing existing and future conditions, drawings for each runway end and any obstructions that might need to be removed that have been identified, drawings that show enlargements of particular areas of the airport, for example, terminal area plan or west area plan and others. The new airport layout plan is the first comprehensive update in 9 years and will consist of 34 individual 36-inch by 48-inch sheets. The largest number of sheets are devoted to the Exhibit A and Properties Inventory Map developed for Cleveland using current FAA standard operating procedures. Since 2013, the FAA has required each airport that received federal grants to have an Exhibit A and Properties Inventory Map. This will be the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport's first FAA-approved Exhibit A. The FAA refers to an Exhibit A as, quote, a snapshot of the inventory of parcels that make up dedicated airport property. The Exhibit A indicates how the land was acquired, the funding source for the land, for example, FAA, state, local, or other funds, and if the land was conveyed as federal surplus land or government property. While part of the ALP set, the Exhibit A is separately submitted to the FAA for approval. The Cleveland Exhibit A consists of 13 sheets. The final task of the Cleveland Master Plan is preparation of a document having 9 chapters as well as a variety of appendices. Examples of appendices include a building conditions report for the terminal, the results of a safety risk management panel that evaluated airfield alternatives developed for the master plan, and a summary of all public involvement activities that occurred throughout the master planning process.
All right. This is Jeff Mishler, the project manager. Thank you, everybody. That concludes the pre-prepared presentation. We're about ready to go into Q&A, and Director Kennedy had a few comments he wanted to make before we got into Q&A.
Jeff, thank you. Thank you for everyone. We've got about 90 participants on the presentation tonight, plus it's streaming to many more people. This councilperson's life talked about the Transportation Committee meeting this morning. And in that meeting, I said, this plan is a path forward. It's big, it's bold. However, it will only be a wish if we're inefficient, non-competitive, and we fail to comply with federal regulatory requirements, we lack transparency, and we do not find a way to be inclusive to all areas in our city. If we have the conviction for a brighter future, we must remember the millions of people we serve and we will never meet. We cannot let this path forward fall to the wayside because of personal agendas and benefit. Clevelanders and our guests deserve better air transportation with the required facilities that needed to support that endeavor. Yesterday, Mayor Jackson talked about the Amtrak announcement. And I quote, where there's good, effective, efficient modes of transportation, you will always get commerce to flow and investment opportunities to occur. Certainly, this has been proven repeatedly as it relates to airports. So thinking big, thinking bold, thinking long-term, and being innovative and creative must be the guardrails for us as we go forward. So we'll take some questions. There are a number of questions already up, and we'll start taking those. And I think, Dennis, you're going to read them.
Good evening. First question we have is from Lincoln. Lincoln asks, can you go into how lineal feet per gate affects hold room size and capacity? At first blush, it seems like less lineal feet per gate with larger aircraft will result in crowding similar to that in the current terminal, offsetting the benefits of lower walk distances. I'm going to throw that one back to our RS&H team to answer. Go ahead, team.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'll start it off, and if Tony and Dean have anything to add to it, that'd be fine. It's really the configuration of the aircraft and how they're parked around the concourses that really matter. There's no wasted space, if you will, but also the width of the concourses today are very narrow, some of them. So in our concepts, we all the concourses are expanded out so that the area provided per gate is increased, even though you have a more efficient parking arrangement around each terminal. Because the concourses are wider, you're gonna meet your hold room requirements long term.
That's a good description, Jeff. And I think, kind of going more into it, what you were getting at was the depth of the hold rooms. That gives us the space that we need, but it is a more efficient, more compact concourse than what we're seeing out there on some of the concourses today.
All right, thank you guys. Our next question is from Jason. Jason asks, will Concourse D remain in use after the entire terminal is rebuilt or remodeled, not just during construction? Director Kennedy, go ahead.
Concourse D, as you know it, for United, which was part of their hub operation, we examined that significantly with the consultants, our team with United, and the cost of D for the benefit doesn't equate. D will not be used, and it critical to this is what we say the critical aircraft types. Concourse D was built for an aircraft that will not return to this market. Pre-COVID, it was flying very little in the U.S. period. So it was an average size. It was much smaller than what we see today. Plus, the concrete ramp in the area wasn't stressed for the bigger aircraft. So it was about $120 million to renovate, whereas the new Concourse E contact gates, which are better than better customer service level, was about $82 million, if I remember the numbers correctly. So we did look at D, but D will not be used as an airport concourse. This D, as you know it, for United.
Thank you, Director. Our next question, again, is from Lincoln. Lincoln asks, does CLE not currently have a RAC CFC?
I can take that one quickly, Dennis. No, we do not. Our peer set airports, Columbus and Cincinnati and so forth, they do. It is something we've got to look at. Almost universally, we heard from guests and feedback from the community, we needed to bring the rental car facility back and make it walkable here. So that's one possible funding mechanism.
All right, thank you. Next question is from Thomas. Thomas writes, in regard to the regional access concept, and this might have been in an earlier slide, is there a timeline around transitioning from the current access route to regional access concept 2, then a timeline for phasing from 2 to regional access concept 3, or is it all dependent on passenger activity levels? Nick, do you want to answer that one for us?
Yeah, I can take that.
I think he's thinking it's subsequential, that you go 1, 2, 3, instead of we just going with the 3 concept.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it is, we did look at concept 3, which is a direct access from 71 or 77 as a preferred. 71. Or 71 as the preferred, but it will occur at a point in time when traffic warrants it. I'm going through the question again.
The concept 3 is the preferred regional access. That's the one we're going with. It's not you do concept 1, concept 2, and then concept 3. It is, as Grace from NOACA said, be bold and let's go with the best. And quite frankly, guys, 95% of airports our size in the country, I think this was Dean or maybe Owen that told us this statistic, 95% of the airports in the country have direct interstate connection. We're in that 5% minority that does not, and concept 3 is in our regional access committee was I won't say it was unanimous, but it was an overwhelming positive choice.
Robert, I think the other thing to answer Thomas's question to keep in mind is when you build the new access, Regional Access 3 with its direct connection to the interstate, you need to have your on-campus roadway system ready to receive that. So the timing of the two projects will be linked with the airport roadways that were shown and by PAL 3. So that's the relative timing as I see it.
Thank you, Owen. Our next question comes from Jason. How extensive will Concourse A renovations be? I will turn that one over to our RS&H team to give us a high-level summary of those renovations.
Again, I'll ask Tony and Dean if I missed something, but Concourse A is going to include an expansion, again, widening of the concourses, infilling of some of the narrow areas to provide larger hold rooms, upgrades of finishes, upgrades of mechanical, electrical systems within there, maybe some structural updates as well, but pretty much a good overhaul of the entire terminal.
Yeah, I would just add, Jeff, that we are relocating the existing FIS facility out of that concourse into the main terminal building, so that space would also become available for renovation and improvements.
Thank you, Dean.
All right, thank you, guys. Next question is from David. Does the recommended plan result in a facility with the size and amenities that are comparable or better than new facilities recently built or planned for similar sized markets, Indy, Pitt, etc.? Are we thinking big, figuratively, or settling? Will travelers be wowed, realizing that architecture plays a role and that has not been decided, but we need to reserve the appropriate amount of space? Think Indy Atrium, for instance. I'll turn that one over to the RS&H team as well, guys. Thanks. Go ahead.
I think by the numbers, one of the selling points of the Family 2, the recommendation, is it's largely building, for a large part, it's building a brand new terminal on the existing site. So there is a lot of opportunity to improve amenities, have more really nice space that the community can be very proud of. So you're going to get almost 70% new building space within that Family 2 concept once fully built. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for amenities, architectural features that you're seeing in new terminals. I think that you can have that right here in Cleveland with the recommended terminal concept. Tony, Dean?
Yeah, for the main terminal portion of the building, the plan includes really expanding the terminal portion both to the air side and towards the land side. The air side expansion is just, it would be, a smaller expansion, mainly to build a new facade to the air side, and we sort of envision that as being, a glass wall. That would bring light into the space and provide views to the airfield. And I think that's going to be your wow space, is really that that area that connects the northern concourses to the southern concourses. You would have there would be a central security screening checkpoint in that.
Lost you, Dean.
Lost Dean.
What happened?
Well, oh, there you go.
You're back.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. Where did I cut off?
The grand space, but the concession space.
Either side, the security screening checkpoint on the secure side, there'd be concession nodes on either side of the security screening checkpoint, and those areas would have views to the airfield. We would envision raising the ceiling in that area, so that would kind of be your grand north-south running concession concourse. On the land side, we're expanding the face of the building on the land side towards the parking garages. That would create a new facade. It would create opportunities to open up spaces between the ticketing level and the baggage claim level for views, and that would help with passenger orientation. And in that landside expansion, we would also incorporate new vertical circulation cores, maybe 2 or 3, that would connect both baggage claim and ticketing levels, and that would also connect to bridges and tunnels connecting to the parking garage and RTA station and rental car facility. So yeah, and so in addition to having new concourses that would be wider, more open, more light, we think there's a lot of opportunities in the terminal building to create really impressive spaces.
All right, thank you guys. Next question comes from Dennis. Is there a proposed schedule for design and construction of the PAL phases? So well, we got to explain, I'll go back a little bit and explain about the PAL phases. So they are associated with passenger activity levels. PAL 1 is our 10.1 million passengers that we had in 2019. PAL 2 is that next level at 10.9 million passengers. So there is not a schedule in terms of dates associated with the PALs, but the PALs relate to those different passenger levels. So the forecast that was associated with the plan is anticipating that we will be back to PAL 1, PAL 2 passenger levels around the 2024 time period. So again, there's no specific dates associated, but those trigger points will be the passenger levels themselves. Moving on, next question is from David. Why are we so concerned about walking distance? Anyone who's been to a major airport has walked much further than this compact design. Is that criteria limiting our thinking? Are we putting too much emphasis on this? I'll turn that over to Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Dennis. So David, that's a great question, and I think we could all think about airports we've been to where they've had quite extensive walks, and this really comes down to the level of service we offer our passengers. For many of us, a quarter-mile walk is not a problem, but with a family with kids and bags trying to make their way through the parking lots and parking garages through the terminal and eventually get to their gate. That's something that, in this case, I think we can answer through proper planning and design, and that's what we tried to do here, is to minimize some of those walking distances. Now, on the other hand, we're also kind of land constrained with 237, and so our walking distances really can only get so far. But I think it's important to our passengers and those flying out of Cleveland, and I think we were able to solve that by shortening those distances and accommodating closer in parking.
All right, thank you, Nick. Next question comes from David. David says, when do we start? I'll bring my shovel.
I'll take that one.
Go ahead, Director.
Yeah. David, I said this morning in Transportation Committee meeting that we were on a good path in 2019, the first 2 months of 2020, and then it turned to hell. It's the most devastating time in our industry that I can remember, certainly, but many experts say in the entire 118 years of powered flight. Our economics were so bad, we were at one point, we were losing $1 million a week. We talked about the numbers of people that lost their jobs, and this was not unique to Cleveland. Airlines saw the biggest loss in money in history of flight. They probably lost more last year in operating losses than they made in the previous 40 years. So we got to finance it. The plan, the master plan, is really the easy part. The next heavy lifting is how we finance. Financing this year, because we're not out of COVID yet. We don't know the impact on the long run. Next year, we'll re-examine some of the conditions of the market and the financial conditions of the carriers. Here in Cleveland, the carriers stand behind our debt, so we'll do consultation with them and get agreement on the path forward. And so probably early planning for financing in late 23, early 24, and then it becomes the design and then implementation and construction. That seems like a long way off, but we still have a lot of uncertainty in our industry and a lot of uncertainty in what that path will be for the whole industry globally. I showed information earlier where for us, we're doing a little better than the national average, and I expect that to continue. So if it gets pushed earlier, better on us.
All right, thank you, Director.
That kind of takes that one too.
And thank you, David, for your willingness to bring your shovel over.
Yes.
All right, next question is from Joe. Joe writes, what's the timeline on a start date for construction, and how terrible will it be for passengers over the next 20 years? Love the overall plan, though. Totally awesome and years overdue. Well worth the money. Joe, I'll take that one. So I think the director touched on the timeline a bit for financing and design and actual construction implementation. In terms of how terrible it will be for passengers, we're going to make sure it's not terrible for passengers. The team has put together a plan here and done so in a way to phase the work, so we will minimize the effect on our passengers and our customer service levels. So we'll move on to the next question. Next is Michael asks, can you provide more details regarding the RTA rapid station location, and will the location change? I'll turn that one over to the RS&H folks if they have any insight on that.
I believe the RTA station is going to remain in its existing location. There may need to be a new connection with the ultimate terminal concept that'll have to be provided, but we don't see any need, or we don't see that changing as part of the implementation of the preferred concept.
Yeah. And moving the face of the building further towards the east will actually be a shorter connection to get to the RTA station than what exists now.
The plan anticipates, as well as pedestrian bridges up above the terminal roadways connecting to the multifunctional garage that has rental car parking and ground transportation center in it, that there would also be underground tunnel connection, and that tunnel connection would be a corridor that, again, has an opportunity to be a better space than what you have today for the connection to the RTA.
And let me add, guys, I come from a city where we had about 40 to 50,000 travelers a day to the airport, or users to the airport. We need, and I've talked to Councilman Slife, I've talked to various people, we need to see how we can get ridership up. The people who work here every day, mass transportation is key to a lot of the issues that cities face, and we need to do a better job. This was the first airport in the country more than 50 years ago that had a direct rail connection to the city center. And we need to capitalize on that now and into our future. You want to read the next one?
Thank you, Director. Next question comes from Brian. Brian asks, have airlines expressed being constrained by the current concourses and unable to add flights routes as a result? Additionally, have any expressed plans to grow, possibly into a focus city, if a newer, more expensive terminal existed? Turn that one over to John. Go ahead, John.
Good evening. This is near and dear to my heart. I spent 30 plus years on the airline side, so I know what the airlines are going through. First of all, we've never said no to business. We have always been creative. and was able to accommodate carriers with their existing signatory gates, the ones that they lease out. And also we have a system of common use gates. If there's any overflow, our common use program accommodates these airlines. Airlines are also looking at long-term. They have their long-term plans in addition to the short-term plans. And we are looking at possibly accommodating airlines who want to take over additional gates. The bottom line is, though, there's been no concern about constraints, but as far as looking forward, we're looking forward to expansion, and we've been creative to handle anything that comes our way. As far as focus cities, we're always in contact with our carriers. Now that COVID is slowly getting behind us, we're continuing those discussions on what the future presence of these carriers are going to be in Cleveland. And there is faith in the Cleveland market by our airlines, and we hope to generate more business as we go forward.
Good deal. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Next question comes from Ed. Ed writes, in one of the slides, it mentioned the need of 39 additional acres of space. Would this be gained through acquisition? If so, where? Efficiencies? If so, how? Or both?
I'll take that one for Ed. Good question. No, we do not need to expand beyond our current borders of the airport, beyond the property we already have command and control on. The slide you spoke of, or you referenced, talks about what we need. We have acreage. We need to better utilize it, more modern facilities, and improved layout that the team just talked about and showed you. So it's not any expansion. We don't need any more runways. We don't need to lengthen our runways. So the headings on our runways will remain. The area is good. We just need to do a better job of making it efficient.
All right, thank you, Director. Next question comes from Robert. Robert asks, can you explain in a little more detail the plan for the new rental car facility at the terminal, including the comments regarding the move of ready return to the new 7-story garage? I will let RSNH comment on that one first. Go ahead, guys.
All right. I think I'll take that. The way the phasing is planned is this: is that the 2 rental car facilities, basically where the orange lot is today, they're 3-story structures. The one on the south is got each of a single set of families, the rental cars on the level, and that's the quick turnaround for fuel and wash and a little bit of storage. The garage on the north are the ready return spaces with a customer service building attached to the western face, connected by overhead walkways, much as the way there's an overhead walkway out to and then down to the orange lot today. In the original plan, the fully funded plan through phase 5, with the building of the ground transportation center, we saw an opportunity to bring the rental car ready return function closer to the terminal while retaining the efficiency of the use of the QTA facility in the southern garage, and the northern garage could become rental car storage. Now, with the funding availability, I think Jorge showed that 70% of the very large facility would be built through PAL 5, and then subsequent to that, you'd expand for the rest of the 30% of that. At that stage, then, with through PAL 5, there's really not room for the rental car ready return function immediately across the terminal curb roadways in that much larger facility. And I think by the time it gets expanded to the full size, it will be a question for the rental car companies and the airport to think about: are they better off staying in the facility that will have been used now probably for a decade or more in the 2 garages on the orange lot, or would they prefer to bring their customers into the ground floor and have all the ground floor of that fully expanded multifunctional terminal be used for the rental car ready return? At the very western front of that, the north-south bay is the ground transportation center for vehicles and enclosed waiting space, and that enclosed waiting space could be expanded to include the customer service function for the rental cars. So it's a question that really gets postponed until the airport is.
We lost you again.
We lost you, Owen.
You got to get away from that AOL. All right,
Nick, can you go back to? All right, thanks, guys. We'll move on to the next question. I think we got the gist of that, Owen. Thank you. Next question comes from Jason. Will the new concourse layout force arriving aircraft to wait for a departing aircraft to get pushed out? An issue that SLC and LGA had to solve.
Audio.
Yeah. John, can you answer that one for us?
It's a planning question.
I think
Go ahead, Jeff.
we're planning for enough gates to accommodate your peak hour aircraft demand. So, you know, those things can happen due to delays and weather and so forth, but we are not planning penalty boxes, they call them, like LaGuardia, Salt Lake City, O'Hare, where, you know, planes arrive and they have to sit there until a plane departs a gate because the turnaround time is just too close. We're not planning that. We're not building that into the plan. So there should be adequate gates for the peak hour.
Yeah. And Jeff, with the dual taxi lanes, we're going to have the capability so that one plane doesn't have to wait for another to clear the alleyway, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, next one.
All right, thanks, guys. Next question is from Ed. Ed writes, will the sheets mentioned at the end of the presentation that will be submitted to the FAA be made available to the public on a CLE site or FAA? Nick, go ahead with that one.
Thanks, Dennis. Ed, all documentation that we have will be available to the public, including this presentation we're going through right now that you will be able to find on clevelandairportmasterplan.com. And again, the reason we send these to the FAA is we got to get their signature on 2 of the sheets for them to accept this plan and help put it into motion.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Our next question is from Michael. Michael writes, you indicated the Sheraton Hotel will be demolished. Will there be a replacement hotel on the airport property? If not, why not?
I'll take that one, Dennis. The switch in the type of airport that we are, from a hub to an origin and destination airport, has a huge impact on the need of an on-airport facility. We have finite space on the airport, and so each of the planning segments look at highest best use. So the demand for a hotel is not significant as we go into the future, and the highest best use is not necessarily for airport property, which is very finite to be designated. And if you look in the surrounding areas, we have a lot more hotel rooms than we had just a few years ago.
All right, thank you, Director. Next question comes from Ken. Ken writes, when will the first shovel be in the ground for this plan? I think we touched on that a little bit earlier. And again, you know, that it's all based on those passenger activity levels, planning activity levels, and when we get back to those certain levels. And as I mentioned before, the planning activity level 2, which is a trigger for several of these projects, we're anticipating being around that 2024 mark. So a couple years from now, hopefully, will be full-blown implementation. But again, it'll all depend on those passenger activity levels. Next question comes from Trevor. I think we got time for maybe another question or two, and then we're going to cut this off, but I'll try to get a few more in here.
And any questions that are asked, we will respond in writing to them. So don't think we won't get back to you. It's just that we're running out of our time allotted for this.
So we'll do this last one right here. Trevor asks, is there a concern of rising material costs driving the project above the estimated funding limit as currently shown? And I'll take that one as well. You know, there's always a concern for rising material costs, and you know, it's anticipated that material costs, you know, will rise over the next 20 years, obviously. And there is contingency percentages, allowances built into the financial model that the RS&H team has done, and so we think we're well prepared for any kind of, rise in material cost or otherwise.
Dennis, isn't that about 20%, something like that in there?
Yeah.
So, as a contingency. Why don't you take the next one more?
All right, one more. Noah asks, has there been an opportunity to explore a connection to a new airport-adjacent Amtrak station since the recent announcement of a potential rail service expansion in the state? Director, you want that one?
Well, we work a lot. I got to tell you, NOACA, ODOT, Turnpike, the surrounding communities have been actively engaged in this, and we look for any opportunity for intermodal interchange. Actually, every airport on the planet is an intermodal interchange from one mode of transportation to air transportation. So as this develops, we will keep an eye to it and then see what it will do, what Amtrak has planned. But we have a great organization here in Cleveland called NOACA, headed by a forward-thinking, bold person, Grace, and we'll stay tuned on that and see what improvements we can make. Kelsey, I think we're out of the allotted time you gave us.
Yeah, if you're ready to make the call, we can wrap this up. Closing remarks.
Well, again, we will get to responding to the questions in writing from the team. We appreciate everyone's input. It has been a difficult year to do our planning and forward thinking, even difficult to talk about mission, vision, and master plan when you're just trying to survive. And we've survived well. In fact, our airlines and partners have said that we've done a great job, and what we've done here in Cleveland is industry leading. We're quite proud of that, and our path forward must be in consultation with the carriers, and we must be industry leading. So that's all I got. I thank all of the team here locally, RS&H, and the participants, and I wish everyone well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.